So I just read over your consultation form. You got a 10-month-old Pittie, very friendly, 72 pounds. And it sounds like he's just barking out of frustration for attention when you walk him.
Well, we can't decide if it's frustration or what. We don't even let him get close enough to give us that idea. I don't know if it's out of anger. I don't know if it's, I mean, aggression. I don't know if he just wants to be friendly with someone. Don't know yet.
Okay.
We're testing the waters. The one little story I think Emily included in the application was when he got out of his harness and he approached a lady and her dogs.
Right.
He basically just wanted to sniff them and play, but how are we to know that's always going to be the case?
Sure. How long have you had this guy for?
We've had him since he was 4 months old.
Okay. And has he always had this behavior?
No. When he was little and he was a puppy, it was my mistake, just letting him walk wherever he wanted on the leash. But he didn't pull a lot. But then again, he was also smaller, so I could control his strength more. But it's just as of recent, I would say within the last like month or two that when we walk him, like since the weather's gotten warmer and I've been walking him, he pulls like crazy and barks.
Sure. And you walk him on a front clip harness or a no pull harness, is it?
Yeah, we clip him on the chest.
Sure. Do you guys have another dog or other dogs?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the other dog?
He's gonna be 5.
He's gonna be 5. He's
5-year-old Pit as well, but he's very well behaved.
And how are they two together? Like they play a lot, they coexist?
They definitely play a lot.
They definitely play a lot, like a lot of wrestling kind of play.
Yep.
Chasing.
Mack, the 10-month-old, is extremely playful. Diesel, when he's had enough, he kind of shows teeth and barks, and then Mack knows to go away.
Okay.
We got the puppy thinking Diesel needed a pal because he, at the time, was home a lot.
Sure.
But that didn't seem to work out really well. But now that we have Mack, he's here to stay. So Diesel has to get over his little jealousies, I guess.
Sure.
But there's been no major aggression that we're even remotely worried about.
Okay. Anything else I should know about Mack?
About Mack?
Mm-hmm.
He's extremely protective of Emily.
What's that look like?
So, for example, I had cashews one time. My brother wanted some, and I was telling him we couldn't have them. And he snatched them out of my hands, and Mack bit his arm.
Not like real bite, but just like
get away. But he didn't make him bleed.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, I think he like scratched him with his tooth. He didn't puncture him with his teeth, but I think it scratched him. And another time was my dad threw me over his shoulders, and Mack came like coming, but Mack's afraid of my dad, so my dad just went like that, and he like crunched down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mom looks a bit surprised.
I did not know about the bite, to be honest with you.
He told you.
Well, then I don't remember. But my other dog is the same way too. If we're even playing around, and we've tested the waters on this to see if it was just one person or all of us. So it doesn't matter who in the house is goofing around with who, but the other. If it looks like, if we raise a hand to another individual and it looks like it's rough to him, both dogs react the same. They come to the person who has raised their hand and either will jump on up toward the arm. Diesel would like put his mouth around you, but he would never put any pressure on you. It was just like a warning, put your hands down, leave that person alone.
Okay.
And Mack has done that as well.
And
how do you feel about that?
Well, Diesel was trained to do that. Mack, Nick showed him how to do that.
I taught the dog
oh my God, here we go.
I taught the dog to protect. Right.
Okay.
But Mack is more, I wouldn't say with everyone, I would say more with me. And then if he sees Diesel barking at someone, he'll like follow behind Diesel.
He does follow Diesel everywhere.
He's more.
Mack follows Emily and me everywhere.
Like he will sit outside the bathroom door until I come out
and cry.
He
literally waits for her. He follows her everywhere.
Okay. Is that your brother that was just talking a moment ago?
Yeah.
Does he mind giving me a quick just run through of how you taught him to protect?
Nothing logical.
I
Well, well,
Here,
I
just
mean,
really.
It doesn't need to be scientific or anything like that.
Just
I'm
real
just
brief.
trying to get an idea.
Real brief.
well, when someone comes to the door,
Mhm.
I taught the dog to go to the door.
Okay.
When somebody comes in the house, when somebody new comes in the house, he sits down next to whoever opens the door.
Okay.
And then with the whole hitting thing, whoever's doing the hitting, he'll bark at them.
It's because we would tell him get him, and
Okay.
so he would
That's
chase
what
him.
that's what I was trying to get an idea of. Okay. All right. Yep. I just want to get an idea. That's fine. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if it were up to my son, I would have 2 killer pit bulls living with me. But Emily and I are
protective.
Emily and I are very gentle with them, very loving with them. So we tend to spoil them and baby them, versus the boys want a protective, aggressive dog, which no, that's not going to happen.
People that don't belong in the house.
Anyway,
Let me,
no, you really don't need to know anything more about Mack. He really is a good dog. He's very gentle. He's sweet. He's cuddly, and he's never shown aggression to anybody that has walked in my door. I've never had to hold him back from anyone walking in my door.
Mm-hmm.
The only time we hold him back is when people are actually afraid of dogs, because like I said in the forum, Mack jumps when he sees people. He jumps on them, but he doesn't like bite them or anything. It's just, like the excited dog, like, oh, people are in my house, and jumps on them.
Right. Okay. So there's a few things here that kind of catch my attention. At the end of the consultation and stuff, like, I'm going to give my suggestions. You're going to have your own kind of your needs and wants and stuff. And then it's just kind of figuring out what's going to work. Okay. What you're dealing with is pretty standard stuff. I work with this stuff all the time. So for me, it's not surprising. And I have a Pittie of myself. I worked with plenty of pit bulls throughout my career. I'm very familiar with them. They are a very powerful breed. And one thing about Pitties, and I'm not really picking this up here with your dog's behavior, but just so that you're aware, Pitties were born for fighting, right? For pit fighting, all that stuff. And any dogs that were aggressive towards the handler were removed so that they didn't pass on that trait, but they did want that kind of intensity. But with Pitties, the intensity tends to fuel like any kind of behaviors, right? So it's not just like aggressive. It can be like if a Pittie is frustrated, or if a Pittie is anxious or fearful or nervous, that intensity that would typically like back up aggressive type behaviors like kind of fuels those other types of emotions. Does that make sense? So then when you get a Pittie who has behavior issues, non-aggressive or aggressive, they just carry this intensity that's not like other dog breeds, okay? And this is with any kind of bully or power breed, your Rotties, your Bull Terriers, your Pit Bulls, things like that. So like an aggressive Pit Bull is much different than an aggressive German Shepherd, okay? So the other thing is overstimulation is something that kind of Pit Bulls are prone to, which I'm picking up coming from Mack. He also has some attachment issues, it seems, like with your daughter and then with the dog Diesel, which isn't healthy. Some people may find it cute or endearing, but it's not healthy. The protectiveness stuff, when I talk to clients about dogs and protection, a dog's presence in itself, especially just like a power breed, is typically protection enough. Like if you're walking with a pit, like no one wants to bother you. you know.
True.
Like I get people that cross the street when I walk with my
Oh,
dog.
That's true. Yeah. That's what
Especially since Mack has like a very deep bark.
Yeah.
People
Right.
like cross over.
The problem is, and you know, I get couples like where the boyfriend will get like a power breed to protect the wife when he's not around or when she's walking the dog, so that she's not alone, right? And they do the same thing where they you know, teach suspicious or the dog to recognize suspicious behaviors and become stimulated. The problem is they don't teach how to shut it down. Or if the boyfriend or husband's around, they can shut the dog down. But if they're not, the dog, nobody can stop the dog. And that's where problems lie.
See, that's where Mack doesn't know how to shut down. Diesel does. Like,
Right.
we'll just pat his head and tell him nice, it's okay, and he
Or
stops.
enough.
But
We just
Mack
say enough or
You just
stop,
does
and he
not.
You can
stops.
just tell Diesel enough and he stops.
Yeah.
Right. So you have, you know, two different personality types, right? So like you can train one dog one way and you get the dog you want. And then it's like common thing of like, oh, I'm gonna train my other dog this way, but it caps at a certain point because you have two different personality types. Okay. So I just want you to be aware of that. And you know, with training, I can educate you more on how that looks and works in terms of control. But when we put too much stimulation on a dog, sometimes they kind of get stuck, right? So like when you walk with Mack and he's barking at people and stuff, it can look like that, okay? Because he's not focused. He's just kind of all over the place. The harness that you walk him on, even though it's a no pull or front clip harness, it promotes frustration, okay? It can actually make a dog aggressive over time.
Really?
Yes. So the way this with puppies, the way this works is typically when people get a puppy, they don't want the puppy putting pressure on their throat, you know, because they pull. So they get them a harness, and then you know, because they're puppies, it's easier. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's easier. It's easier to how do you say, to control them because they're smaller, right? But then when they hit 70 pounds or even like 40 pounds and up above, it's harder. And what happens is when they're pulling, even though you have the front clip harness that kind of detours pressure, it creates agitation. Dogs have this thing called opposition reflex. Okay, it's a fancy word. All it means is when the dog feels pressure, they go against it. So if you pull back, they pull more forward. If you pull forward, they'll pull more back. So they keep going against whatever you're doing, right? So if he's pulling forward and you're pulling him back to slow him down, you're actually creating more frustration or momentum, okay? So this is where formal training comes into play. So with puppies, especially when you got a bully type puppy, they got them on a harness. And what happens is through the course of that puppy's life, when they see another dog, many people pull their puppy back so that they don't annoy the other dog, right? But then the puppy starts to associate negative pressure towards the dog. So then every time they see a dog and they feel this, they start to think, well, every time I see a dog, negative tension happens and it creates distrust, which eventually can escalate to aggression. I'm not saying your dog's aggressive, but that's typically how it works when I work with my clients, is whenever I go back and ask them questions, it almost always starts with a harness. And over the course of time, the dog gets worse. Okay. I think it's really just overstimulation and frustration, because if Mack really intended to do harm, it would have happened in that setting. Okay. Now, there's a lot of variables that go into play here. So like, let's say that lady with her dog, let's say the dog barked at Mack in self-defense because it was like, I don't know what you're doing, right? And then Mack might switch gears and then perceive threat and response, and then something can happen from that, right? But that's a very different scenario. And these are things, little things that people don't see. They just see the kind of, oh, my dog charged and then a fight happened. And I'm like, well, what happened prior to the fight? Did the other dog bark? Did the other dog lunge? Did the person like yell at your dog? Like what happened in between before the fight happened? Because that'll tell me kind of what's in the dog's head. Okay. So I think so far,
with that situation, the lady was yelling at Mack, but he just like, she kept trying to pull her dog away on the leash, but Mack just like kept following the dog, like just to sniff him.
Yeah. So I'm surprised that he didn't escalate, because when the human pulls the dog back, either one, it changes the body language of the other dog to look more threatening because now they're puffed out from their chest, or since they're going into flight mode, some dogs will pick that up and then pursue even more. So like if a dog is tense and someone just moves very quickly, a lot of times the dog will bite them because of the movement. It just triggers the brain. Like he's not thinking about doing it. It literally is a response to an action. Okay, so people, dogs can, think about, I want to bite you. That's true to a degree, but a lot of times when I hear about dog bites, it's typically in response to something happening, like the person running away, the person petting the dog when the dog said don't touch me and like moved away from the person. There's usually something beforehand that tells me why the bite happened. So I'm actually surprised that it didn't escalate, but that's good that it didn't.
See, there
Did
they
you
go
hear
playing.
that? Did you hear that?
No.
They're playing right now.
See, they're playing right now, and Diesel doesn't want any part of it. So.
No, because Max stole Diesel's bone.
Oh, okay.
So the other things I'm picking up is that there's not much structure within the home with the two Pitties. Okay. And just going off of that topic.
Go away.
Right here.
Go away.
Right here.
Go away.
He gets mad. We're too nice.
I'm sorry. There's 7 people in this house.
It's fine. I grew up with 3 brothers, or 2 brothers and a sister. Sorry. So, I know everything's fine right now, right? Like, Diesel sets some boundaries on Mack and all that stuff, but life can always change. Mm-hmm. People tend to go by what's happening right now, and I go by what I want to happen right now. Okay, so 2 very different things. So when you describe to me if Mack bothers Diesel, Diesel will bark at Mack and Mack will back off, right?
For the most part.
Yeah.
It takes like 1 or 2 and then Mack's like, fine.
Sure. Until maybe, this is a maybe, Mack, because he's 10 months now, at a year, in 2 more months or so, there might be another change psychologically. For 2 years, or as Diesel gets older and weaker, and Mack gets stronger, that can change. Okay, where Mack goes, oh, okay, like you can't boss me around anymore, right? And they start. So in our world, we respect our elders, right? We teach kids respect our elders. In the animal world, they'll start to bully the elders a lot of times. Okay, which can then lead to a fight. So if Mack in the future tries to bully Diesel, and Diesel says back off, and Mack goes, nope, you're old and weak, and decides to start something, and then Diesel says, you think I'm old and weak, and decides to fight back, now we got a bigger problem, right? And this typically starts because there was no rules in place, okay? So if I had Diesel and Mack, and I saw Mack looking like he was gonna bother Diesel, I would correct Mack so that Diesel doesn't have to do anything.
I've done that before. Mack, like when he was a little bit smaller, he like outside especially. Mack has his they have their dog run, and Mack gets in this little pound stance, and I know he's about to charge at Diesel. So I put Diesel behind me, and I tell Mack to stay before he even lunges. Right,
but that's different though. Okay, what you've done is you've put him under control, right? Like stay, don't move, when really he needs a disciplinary measure. So if Mack did something to a degree that Diesel didn't like, Diesel would possibly nip at him, right? He would bark, back off, buddy. And if Mack ignored it, he might nip at him, and he might bite it even a little bit firmer, depending on how stubborn Mack is, right? So he's using a physical consequence to put Mack in his place. It's the same thing for the human when they're correcting the dog, is there has to be a physical consequence. So when I discipline dogs, as they live with me, at some point, I don't have to discipline them anymore. Or if I do, it's very infrequent. Because the dog just learns, I don't mess with Diesel, because Jesse says not to. That is the rule. Do you see that? So it's kind of like with humans and laws. laws are in place to keep people in check. It's the same thing for dogs. You have your kind of laws of the household, and it's create a harmony so that one, Diesel doesn't feel like he has to discipline Mack because it's on you guys. But then I never get the potential issue of Mack getting stronger as he matures and deciding to override or how would you say dominate Diesel. Okay, I'm not saying that this will happen. You could have two dogs that live in perfect harmony for the rest of their lives. Okay, but literally, it's one instance, fight, and then it's good luck trying to get harmony back. That's why it's easiest to just prevent everything, have your structure in place, so that you don't ever have to worry about it happening. Okay, because most of the time when people contact me, it starts the same way. Two dogs, they were coexisting, no big deal. One dog respected the other until one dog decided, nope, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm going to fight back. Okay. The stuff that you noted outside is actually easy. Okay. I'm not, the leash pulling stuff is not a problem. The barking at people and dogs, that's not a problem. The only thing would be it sounds like he's a friendly guy. But again, that can always change. Okay. So by you putting rules in place, you're going to have a much higher chance of success of we're going to keep the dog that we have, or an even better dog because we're putting rules on them, as opposed to I hope this dog stays a good dog. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what are you needing or wanting to achieve with Mack?
Well, first and foremost, we got to be able to walk him. And he's even
Basically, all the stuff that you said easy is what we really want because we didn't think that deep into him and Diesel.
Okay. What else?
He needs to
The
stop,
pulling,
he needs to stop
barking.
chewing on things.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, he's
Not a
kind of,
problem.
yeah, he attacked my antique table the other night.
He is a bully. Mack is.
Why?
Why? Because he takes the bone purposely. You can see him taking
Can you
stuff
hear
away
this?
from Diesel.
Yeah.
He purposely takes stuff away from Diesel. And then since he's bigger than Diesel, all he does is put his butt on his face
Oh,
to
yeah.
keep Diesel away from it.
Sure.
And he just keeps turning around and doesn't let him get to it.
Yeah.
But he starts it all the time. If Diesel
Not all the time.
Oh, come on.
You guys do not
Diesel
walk.
is minding his own business, chewing on a dog, playing with a toy.
And
here
then
comes
Mack
he-
wants
here
to
comes,
play.
You see Mack looking at him, and that's where it starts. Then he just comes over and starts nipping at him. So when Diesel bites back at him or snips at him, then he just grabs whatever he had in his mouth and takes it away.
And runs
And then he
away.
sticks his butt in his face.
Yeah. So like right now, like it sounds cute, right? And funny. Until it's an issue. Right. So it sounds like Diesel's kind of like he's going to a degree, like he's setting a boundary to a degree, right? And he's actually being very patient. And Mack wants to play. Like, he's bullying, but he wants to play, but he's a bully type player, and it's common with Pitties. But what happens when one day Diesel gets fed up? Right. That's the one thing, is that people tend to see like, oh, they play just fine. I go, yeah, but it's just like with a person, like me and my friends, we talk crap to each other all the time, right? And then, but I could be in a bad mood one day from something not related. And then my buddy talks crap to me, and then I snap on my buddy.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Sure.
But every other time, we talk crap all the time, right? It's no issue. It's the same thing with dogs. Okay?
So I have a question. If this would make a difference. So like more in the house, I would say like Mack when it comes to toys is dominant. But like when I take them to the park, I put them two in the tennis court together, and like Diesel is completely like takes off, grabs the ball, stays away from Mack. Like Mack's just trying to keep up with him and chasing him.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say definitely outside the house right now anyways, because Diesel is still pretty young, is more dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the house, like my dad was saying, Mack can be a little bully.
Sure. I mean, and when it comes to, let's say dominant or more confident behaviors, it's not concrete. Like it's not going to be strict, right? So like one dog can be dominant over food and the other dog would be submissive. And the dog that's submissive would be dominant over water, but the other dog is submissive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not across the board. It can shift context, what the object is over, towards the dog. Like you could have 3 dogs and one could be the Chihuahua, and the Chihuahua is just like bullying everybody, right? Over a bunch of things. Like size doesn't matter. It's all about personality and the confidence. But with the outside thing, there's more space. It's an active activity. You're partaking as opposed to Mack going up and like taking something from Diesel, right? That's a very separate, isolated context as opposed to you actually engaging with them. Okay. But, there's healthy and unhealthy stuff. And it's just kind of letting you know, like, hey, this is something I would be careful with. I'd address it. This I'm not too worried about type of thing. But again, this just sounds like normal stuff to me, but just so that you're aware.
Dog friendly.
Excuse me?
Can you make a dog friendly?
Yes and no. Okay.
Right now, I think, like I was so excited to take him to the dog beach and stuff, and now I am terrified to take Matt.
Well, only because you can't control them. Well, we have, Diesel has never had another dog aggression. And I'm not sure exactly where Mack stands. We do have neighbors on all sides of us with dogs, small dogs. And we can't figure out if it's the dog and the person that he's barking at, or we did notice that if there's no, I think we mentioned this too, if there's no barrier between a person and Mack,
Whether that be a leash or a fence.
he is completely submissive.
Mhm.
But having a fence there creates a lot of animosity, I guess. I don't know if
Sure.
that's the right word. Barking, 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 barking. Yeah, so.
Yeah. So
And I'm
fence.
thinking the little dogs probably look like a treat to him too.
So when it comes to fences, it's a barrier that tends to escalate frustration.
Right.
So like I've had dogs behind fences, like they're gonna kill each other, and then outside of the fence are perfectly friendly with each other.
That's how I feel like he is.
Yeah.
Well,
There's actually a video on the internet where there's a fence. It's a sliding fence, right?
Oh yes,
I saw a sliding.
Yeah, it's a green one, that big green one, and there's like a little gap.
Oh, I missed
Right?
that one.
And they're like, is there a bunch of dogs fighting on both sides? And as it opens, they just walk away.
Away, disperse.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fence heightens territorial behavior, okay? Because it's very black and white. This is my yard. And you could find, let's say Mack is very friendly, meeting outside, all that stuff, no problem, right? And then you bring that same dog in the yard, they get attacked because now he's in his territory. It's a very different context because this is my neighbor's dog. No problem, right? And Matt goes, why is that dog coming onto our property? You said, so dogs are very black and white, and I'm not saying that he will, but these are things that are not uncommon that people don't understand. And I go, because they're a dog, they're primal. He's instinctual. He's very black and white. This is my property, that's your property. Okay, don't come on my property. Or maybe you come on my property, he doesn't care. I don't hold it against the dog because I understand how they think. But don't be discouraged even if that was the thing. Like I said, like there could be tension right there, but outside of the yard, they're perfectly fine.
Well, I have a friend of mine that's going to be visiting soon, and he has his own pit mastiff mix.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was here last summer, Diesel and in fact his dog's name is Diesel too. So Diesel and Diesel got along fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend stayed for probably a month and a half.
Yeah, he was there for a while.
And I'm not so sure if Mack is going to jive with another dog in the house.
I mean,
Yet, anyway, I don't know. I mean, he's really never been, other than the dogs on the side of us, he's never really been nose to nose with another dog outside my house.
gotcha. Well, there's things I can show you to ease that introduction and make it more natural. So when you ask, can I make a dog dog friendly? The reason why I said yes and no is one, and I don't pick this up in your case, but one, if the dog was never social, even as a puppy, I can't make the dog something they're not, right? If the dog was social as a puppy and then something happened and then like, you know, aggression came up or reactivity, there's a possibility that they go back to the social behavior because they were social at one point. It's just something happened. Typically.
Do you think that because we got him in the wintertime, so it was cold out, he never went anywhere. Do you think that could be affecting this because
we didn't socialize him
younger?
Like, yes, in the sense that he didn't get any exposure, but I don't, like, again, going back to that incident where he got off leash, he didn't attack the dog, you know? And when I was reading the consultation, I was surprised. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, cool. So there's no tension there. So I really, for Mack, I feel like the behavior you're seeing for me is just frustration. I don't take that as aggressive. Just because the dog's lunging and barking doesn't mean they're aggressive, okay? And the big deciding factor is when they get the opportunity, do they take it? Which he didn't, right? Because I have another client, same thing happened, dog got off the leash, charged another dog. They didn't attack, but they charged and just kept barking at him from like a foot to 2 feet away. And they said, like, Jesse, do you think my dog would bite another dog? And I was like, well, not if that happens again, because they didn't do it the first time. Like, they don't have that confidence. In your case, I don't think that thought process is even there with Mack. I think he's more than likely just frustrated. Okay. So typically with dogs that are not social, realistically speaking, I'll tell people dog park stuff, dog beach, most likely not. Okay. Because there's so much going on.
Oh, for unsocial dogs. Got it.
Like we would need to get him experience to some dogs before so many at one time is what you're saying, right?
Yes, or he just can't handle that many at once.
Okay.
You know? So it's like some people are good with, you know, a couple of friends and not good at parties. Right? It's the same thing for the dog.
Good scenario.
Why don't you show me?
So for the most realistic is socializing your dog with a friend's dog, because if needed, we can put more control on the other dog to help balance things out, to progress it positively, you know?
Hey, Nick, come here and tell me how Mack and Diesel reacted to Ronnie's dog.
Ronnie's dog.
When you were at the Ola's dog. When you were at the forest.
So I took.
How old was he?
This was maybe
like a month or
maybe
two.
a month ago.
Like 2 months, right?
I took both of them to the forest.
Mm-hmm.
All my buddies were over there. My friend had her dog,
which is a boxer.
My other friend had his. He's got a husky, and then there was a couple small dogs that a couple of my other buddies had. So when I had them both tied to the picnic table when we were eating, and then the boxer came over and was wanted to play with Diesel.
Mm-hmm.
But the boxer lunged at Diesel, and Max stood up real quick and wanted to go after the boxer.
Sure.
But
so that's
in
just,
general, did Mack do well with other dogs?
I had to hold Mac back. I didn't know. I wasn't sure
it was
because
too early to let.
Yeah, because Mac he just wanted to keep jumping.
Did Mack have any dogs other than the boxer that approached Diesel approach him? Even on the leash?
Did any dogs come by Mack? little one was scared of him.
The little one was scared, and so was Pat's dog was scared too.
The
right?
husky.
The husky was scared too. Yeah. So no, not really. The boxer was the only one that wanted to play with everybody.
Okay. Was Mack barking the whole time or anything?
For the most part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things there that because he was tethered to a table or being held on a leash. Again, that creates frustration. I'm not. So when the boxer lunged at Diesel and Mack puffed up, technically he didn't do anything bad. Like he was most likely going to step in for Diesel, right? It's not a bad thing if you think about it in our sense. Like if you stand up for your friend, right?
Absolutely.
But the problem is, dogs settle things through biting. Is that, and he's 72 pounds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. That in our world, even if he went for that dog to protect, he could potentially damage someone else's property or their animal. And then there's the veterinary bills, and then there's lawsuits in some cases. That's where things get tricky, right? And for me, like, if someone's dog comes after my dog and my dog goes to defend themselves, I'll let them defend themselves and I'll kick that dog's ass too, right? Like I'm gonna protect my dog. Like I understand where they're coming from, but the law and the way the world views these things, it doesn't work well. Does that make sense?
Pitbull.
Yeah, and he's a pit bull. And I actually had a client, a golden retriever, pulled the leash out the owner's hand. It was a 12-year-old boy, chased my client's dog down, which was a bulldog pit bull mix, and bit their dog, the pit bull. The pit bull bit the golden retriever in self-defense, and guess who got in trouble?
The pit bull.
Yep. And they went, like, the golden retriever family went to press charges, and everybody was on par with the golden retriever family, despite the fact no adult was around, and the dog was being walked by a 12-year-old child that let go of the leash or had the leash pulled out, had no control over the dog, and the dog bit first. The pit bull got the trouble. Okay, so that's where things get real tricky in those scenarios. So realistically speaking, it would be socializing on a small scale. Okay. And I always suggest that you muzzle train because it'll help take off a lot of anxiety and nervousness. Okay. I have no problem helping you, see if Mack is capable of being social. I think he is personally. I would just be mindful. He sounds like the type of dog, if there is a scuffle, that he's going to come in to like kind of handle the situation. But his breed, his size, and the fact that dogs bite, you don't want things to get worse, right? So you have to get a feel for what he's about. But the muzzle would help you get this, be able to do that without the worry of if Mack tried to do something, would anything happen? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
Food. That thing, anything
yeah,
that it gets in
food.
front of it, he eats.
But he doesn't
Including-
snatch.
Including hot peppers.
He does eat hot pepper.
He eats everything that
But
you
you
put in
gave it
front
to
of
him.
And he comes back for more.
Calm down, guys.
But-
I understand.
Okay,
What you're saying about the things to correct. I think that, he goes into, I have never seen that dog since he's been here have a solid poop.
He goes into the backyard.
Everything is soft. Everything is peanut butter type. Because
If
of
it's
all
peanut
the
butter type, it's most likely the diet.
Exactly. He eats whatever he wants, whatever you put in front of him, or whatever he finds in that yard. He's
I'm
going
the same way.
For the what did he say?
He said, "I'm the
He's
same
the
way."
same way. But how do you
He's an animal. What do you expect? Well, first of all, you don't offer him table food.
Especially hot peppers.
Well,
I eat my dog's hot Cheetos, so.
What my dad's referring to more is that he, like, outside, he eats the mulch.
Sure.
He eats wood. He eats the bark on the trees. I mean, if he's giving him food, of course my dog's going to eat it. Like, here, have something.
That's part of the frustration.
Okay, so we need to correct the frustration, or we need to work with it.
So all that stuff that you're is like the frustrated behavior, it's just lack of discipline and no structure. Okay.
Okay.
So
Kids in the house, right?
Oh my God.
anything else that I should know about Mac, or is that it?
That we should know about. I think we covered a lot. You kind of added more to what we didn't even think about. So
Yeah.
So I do have a question. So like with training, the lady was saying that you have 2 other people there with dogs.
you bring 2 other people with you with your dogs as part of the
With
training.
Maria.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right. So what she meant, or what she was talking about, is that I have 2 employees that tag along with the training.
Yeah.
They're my junior trainers.
Okay.
So they're learning what I do. And they're there to actually film, learn, and then if needed, we can bring our dogs, right? Either for distraction, or if you want a controlled context, like let's say with the socializing stuff and you want to learn how to do it, but you don't want to use your neighbor's dog because you're nervous, then we bring our dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Yeah.
gonna ask.
So are you guys, because I know John Garrido referred you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you guys?
Highly recommended you. Outstanding in capital letters.
Awesome. Did he kind of fill you in on how I work and or anything like that? How I train? Did you do any research?
No, he left it up to us to do that.
But we did read on the website and we did watch videos.
Yeah, we went through your
Okay.
whole website. We watched some videos.
Okay.
I think you train with the I don't know what the collar's called.
Correct. The
I
e-collar.
call it the zapper.
Sure.
I mean, I actually even thought about buying one of those
Okay.
because
So-
when he's in the yard, he needs a little bit more control too. So
When it comes to the e-collar, it's electric, but not electricity. Okay. Have you ever been to a chiropractor or to a physical
yes,
therapist?
yes.
Have you ever had a TENS stim therapy?
Yes.
Yes.
The harder the better. I like it.
So
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
yes,
Yeah.
that's an e-collar.
Okay.
Okay, so a lot of people think it's like a taser or it's electricity, a current. If
Right.
you're shocking your dog, electrocuting. No, it's not how it works. Okay, it's a TENS unit. Okay, so it's a muscle contraction.
Right.
This will get you the full control, the easiest control. It's very simple to use and simple to learn. Okay, and it's super effective. So especially now, because with the virus, we're doing everything through Zoom or verbal instruction outside at the park. Okay. And people were skeptical, like, is this even going to work? I'm like, yes, because of the tool. It's super, super simple. Okay. Once you understand it, it's like night and day. Okay. So, and also you get off leash control if you want. So if he's out in the backyard trying to chew on mulch or something, you can be inside, you can correct it. Okay. If he were to happen to get off leash, you can get him back now. Okay. So, and e-collar is the only tool that would guarantee you off leash control. Okay. Because every other tool, you have to remove the leash or it relies on food. So if neither of those things, obviously you're not going to have a leash on him if he gets off leash or whatever. Is this remote is going to give you contact with them up to a mile, depending on the model that you get.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
great.
Which is, yeah.
Do we get this collar from you guys or do we buy it at like a specific pet store? Or?
I send you to Amazon. They have them on Amazon.
Okay.
Okay. So the big question here is, if you walk both the dogs and Diesel just walks however, and Mac is taught to walk in a structured way.
Well, Diesel's actually really good. He stays on your right side. When I used to walk them together, like when it first started getting warm out, I tied their leashes together. So it was kind of like one leash and then, you know, they split.
Mm-hmm.
And Diesel, anytime Mac would cut over, Diesel always backed up and always went on the right side. Like he's always on the outrightmost side.
I've always walked him. Hold on, just relax.
No,
relax.
That's how Diesel was taught.
Right. I've always walked the dogs on my right side because that's my strong arm. So
Okay.
I would hold the leash. I would wrap the leash here, and I would hold like this, and we would walk.
Mm-hmm.
my right arm is the strongest. So
Okay.
that's why he was taught on the right. But I noticed in a lot of your videos, they're on the left.
Yeah, traditional is left side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why
It
is,
doesn't- why?
yeah, why is that?
So the heel comes from hunting dog training. So they carry their guns on the right side, so they don't want to accidentally shoot their dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, I have one client right now that's teaching their dog on the right side. It's just everything's reversed.
Okay.
Okay. But you'd also have to remind me because I train all my dogs on the left, so I'll
Well,
forget.
we can train Mac on the left anyway, since Diesel's used to the right. So if we walk them both at the same time, each one has their own side.
Their own side. Okay. So this is personal preference. It sounds like you're fine. Okay. But when you're trying to establish structure, it's typically across the board.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because then for what you might get is Max can go, well, if he's not getting the same structure, why do I have to follow this? And then it's kind of like this back and forth. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not saying that you can't, but there's a potential that may happen. There's only, I would say, two things that I would think Diesel needs to know, and that's just walking. Even though I know you say he's good, but you're good and my good are very different.
Diesel?
Excuse me?
Diesel? You said diesel.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm not saying you have to, but if there's inconsistency, it's like raising kids, and you have two kids that you're raising very differently,
Right.
right? They're gonna mom, like, why did they get to do it and I couldn't, type of thing, right? Same thing with the dogs. The only things I care about would be leash walking and come when called. Okay.
Mac's pretty good at it. Diesel, since Mac came in this house, has
Yeah.
lost his manners.
Diesel's kind of lost some of his manners.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be, you cover those things with Diesel.
Okay.
And there's a couple ways of going about that. But that's personal preference, okay? But it'll make life easier when both dogs are on the same page, as opposed to one dog with one rules and another dog with another set of rules.
Okay.
Okay. The leash walking is going to be what's going to address Max reactivity.
Okay.
Okay. And we shouldn't see barking, lunging, pulling, anything like that. Which if he's not even going to that degree, him getting off the leash and charging someone shouldn't even happen. Because you're stopping it right at 1. He's not getting to 10. Okay. When we do training, it's like a preventative measure to not even allow the dog to get to that point. Okay. The recall is there. Well, let's say he gets really well trained, and a lot of people, their perception of what they think they can get done is going to be super low. And then they're like, holy crap, Jesse, I got so much out of this. Like, I didn't know I could have this much control. I'm like, yeah, it's because of e-collar, right? That they start giving their dogs more freedoms because they know they have the control now, okay? Is that we have the off-leash recall, 1, in case something happens, but 2, so that if you decide, like, Mac's doing really well and you want to give him more freedom, you have the means of calling him back, whether it's a squirrel, a rabbit, if he's running to play with another dog or whatever, you're able to get him back no matter what's going on. Okay. The stuff inside the home, like the, bothering Diesel, the chewing in the backyard, jumping on people, eating whatever, all those things are actually very simple to fix. Okay. It's possible that the discipline behind the training will resolve some of those issues because it's frustration. Because he has no structure. He has no one telling him to just turn off and relax. Okay. Once we get that in play, you guys are my feedback, and I always go like each week. I'm like, how was it this week? Did anything change? And you're like, hey, Jesse, he stopped chewing on the furniture. He stopped digging up the backyard, like all this stuff. I'm like, good. I'm like, because this is all frustration. Okay. And then you might say, but he's still jumping on when we come in the home. I go, okay, no problem. We're going to address it, and we're going to address it this way. Okay. So think of dog behaviors as like with kids. Like for me, I was raised old school. I was spanked. If I didn't do my homework, if I didn't do my chores, or if I talked back to my mom, I got spanked for all of those things, right? So it's one consequence for a multitude of behaviors. It's the same thing for a dog. Okay, so when we have behaviors, unless it's something that's like fear, anxiety, or nervous driven, like there's a behavioral issue behind it, it's just consequence. To
You
stop
said
the
what?
behavior. It's just consequence to stop the behavior. Yeah. Okay, so that's simple. And that I usually cover by like class 3 to 4. They're playing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're playing.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, can you keep them quiet for a minute, please?
Yeah.
By class 3 or 4 is typically when we start to address the behavioral stuff, to see what does the discipline fix first, and then we address whatever's kind of like left over. Okay. Questions so far? So when it comes to length of time, I have 6, 9, and 12-week programs. I feel like you're in the 6-week realm. Okay, 2 classes for the leash walking, 2 classes for recall, 2 classes for anything kind of left over. And if everything's going really well, I teach you more stuff. Okay, more discipline. And then what we've done is we've added 2 Zoom classes to the program. So it's 6 in person and 2 over Zoom for stuff like in the home.
Okay.
You know, so that so I actually just did a Zoom session with the client right now because the dog barks whenever anybody walks in front of the door, or like he hears another dog barking down the hall or whatever, right? So we did a Zoom session to address all that stuff, so that they could use their in-person sessions for the stuff that I need to be present for, and the other stuff is simple enough that I can just tell you over a session like this. Okay, so it's technically a total of 8. So it's 6 in person, 2 on the internet. That program runs $825, and if you wanted to have Diesel be a part of it, you could do a couple of things. One, you train Mack, and then you just apply what you learned to Diesel. Okay, I've had some people do that. It's a little bit harder because Diesel may not respond the same way that Mack does. Okay, or you can extend the class a half an hour, and then the extension is $35
Per class.
Per class?
per class.
Okay.
Okay. Typically, only the first 2 classes need to be extended. And after that, once people understand how to use the tools and the exercises, they're typically fine. And then an hour for the dogs is enough. Okay. And you can always attach a half an hour later on. It's just scheduling might be a little weird, but you know, we could figure that out. And then the training collar. Okay. Now this is where things are gonna get a little tricky. The training collars that I use, you have 2 options. One is meant for dogs 70 pounds and under. That one runs about $287 with tax.
Oh,
Damn.
They last I've had mine for 8 years. Okay, so they last a really long time. They're waterproof.
Okay, I was gonna ask that.
That model has a 3/4 mile range. Okay, so plenty of range. The other model is 352 with tax, has a 1 mile range, and is waterproof, and is meant for 70-pound dogs and over.
Okay.
Okay.
okay, well,
Now,
I'm not sure how big he's gonna get. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, I mean, 70
Yeah,
and
yeah.
over. So, I mean, it doesn't even make sense to get to 70 and under then.
Mack is 80 pounds right now.
No, he's
No, he's
72.
not. He's 72.
I
We
just,
reweighed
I
him.
just weighed him last week.
We weighed him the other day.
It wouldn't make sense to get the under 70-pound one then.
right. So the other thing is, when I work with power breeds, I will recommend to the client to opt for higher power. In case anything ever happens, they don't have to worry about, can I stop the dog?
What do you mean by higher power?
So
The electrolytes that, or electrodes that,
the output, the
Right.
contraction is more.
is that in the 352 price?
That's the more powerful one.
Okay.
So when I deal with bully type dogs, like let's say Mack was 60 pounds, right? I would tell you the same thing. I was like, technically he falls under this power, but I would recommend you get the bigger one because it's a few bucks more and you don't have to worry about if Mack one day decides to like blow up. Like you have the output there to shut it down, because when a dog goes into aggression, they're adrenalized, right? It's like being in a fight, getting punched, like you don't feel it.
Yeah.
Okay? Same thing for the dog, okay? That you want to have more output kind of just in case. All it means is that you get more from less, okay? So the numbers go 0 to 127, and it goes in breaks of 1. So 50 on the higher powered collar, 30 on the higher powered collar might be like 50 on the lower power collar.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how that works, okay? Now, this is just a one dog system, okay? So if you wanted to work with Diesel, you would get a system with 2 dogs, and I think off the top of my head, the higher power system for 2 dogs runs around 500 to 600. Okay.
I really don't think Diesel needs it.
The collar,
No, I think Diesel does pretty well.
like listening wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One quick question. I gotta go to work. Is there a way that we can get Mack to, I don't know, this whole biting everybody just to bite them, or is there
He doesn't bite just to bite. He's a very
No,
aggressive player.
like Diesel? If there's fighting in the house, Diesel will protect the one who.
We already went through that.
We
I
told him
understand,
to-
but can we correct Mack to? I don't know, I
Mack
don't know-
basically
I don't
only
know how to
protects me, and he gets very mad about it.
No. If there's a way to that.
Are you saying you want him to bite somebody?
No, I don't. No. That's not what I'm
You
saying.
want me to stop him from doing so.
You want him to stop from lunging at anybody that puts up their arm? What are you asking?
I would like that to happen. Just like if somebody outside were to do something, then Mack knows that's all right. But just in the house.
Yeah. Yes. That's actually easy. The only issue is, you can teach Mack to recognize the people within the home not to do that with. So if you're playing with each other, he doesn't, okay? And it's actually pretty simple, but just understand that if Mack does, like let's say one of your friends does that outside playfully,
Yes.
and Mack goes for that person,
Yes.
okay? He may not distinguish. Just be mindful of that,
Understand.
okay?
Understand that.
But yes, it's easy to teach them to recognize the people within the home to not do that with.
Okay.
Okay, go to work.
Yeah. Between that and
Go to work.
just Mack protecting us.
Okay.
Both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing.
Yeah, he if it were up to him, we would have a killer dog on our hands.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No. He just wants both dogs to protect the family.
Yeah. I come across it a lot. Just to let you aware though, let's say, do you have a fenced front yard or a fenced yard or whatever?
We're full
Backyard.
yard.
In the backyard, it's fully fenced.
Okay. So like, let's say you're on your property, right? And someone reached their hand over the property line and, as example, Mack jumped and bit the person or nipped at them. And they decided to call the police and press charges, you would actually be held liable.
Well, why is that if he's in my yard and
The laws don't work that way. So that's why I was telling you, in my mind, I'm on the same page as you. I'm like, my property, you don't want to get bit, stay out, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to touch my dogs. I don't care how friendly they look. Don't touch them, right? Laws, however, don't work that way. Not here in Illinois, okay? If the dog is off leash, you are responsible for your dog regardless of where you're at, on property or off property, okay? If your dog is on a leash and someone charges you, like let's say their dog or person charges you or goes to make contact with you and the dog bites, you're not held liable because your dog was on leash. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So I have clients' dogs that their dogs are aggressive, and they'll be walking with the dog's minding its own business, and another dog will run off leash, and then the dog would bite, right? Not even though their dog was aggressive and they were out walking with them, since they were on a leash and approached by an off-leash dog, they were not held liable. Okay, so that's why I was telling you, you want to be mindful of what you teach your dog, because do it to the wrong person. I had a gentleman who got sued for $100,000 and lost his home insurance, and his neighbor jumped into the yard to go into another yard, okay, like to kind of cut through, and the dog bit him on the ass. He sued and he won $100,000, and the guy lost his home insurance. Okay, and he had a pit.
Yeah, the barking is what scares my neighbors. In
Yeah.
fact, one neighbor threatened to call the police on me already. He says my dog is vicious and we need to give it away.
No, that I'm fairly confident it's not going to be an issue.
I
Okay.
even went to the extra mile and I bought a box of dog treats and I gave one to each neighbor.
So I have a question about that. So when he jumps up on the fence, like yesterday, for example, he jumped up on the fence, like barked a little bit, and then they came over with treats and he was fine. They didn't have treats, and then he started barking a little
But
bit.
they were still able to pet him.
Yeah,
So
because
I don't know if the treats is a good thing or a bad thing, because I don't want him to like be like, oh, I'm going to bark and I'll get treats. If I don't bark, I'm not going to get treats. I don't know if that's like.
in both cases they sound the same thing, like the same thing. He just wants attention and he's frustrated. Okay, so it's rather like, hey, I'm barking at you because I want to say hi, or I'm barking at you because you gave me treats before and I want to say hi. It's like the difference. Okay, it doesn't hurt because you're just creating a positive association, right? It doesn't hurt to do that. If you want to keep doing that, I have no problem with it. Okay, it may not remedy the barking though. Okay, consequence and disagreeing with the behavior will correct the barking.
Okay.
Okay.
So when he does bark, do you suggest we like get his attention, make him sit and tell him no? Or
Mhm.
like.
I mean, you can do it for now.
I don't want to always have to go out in the yard with the dog either.
Right.
You know,
So,
there's a lot of people that just open the door, let their dog do their business and let him back in. I mean, I want to be able to do that and not have to worry about him barking at everybody.
right. So think of it this way. You have a kid, right? You tell them you can't watch TV. And then you go, hey, I got to run to the store real quick to pick up some groceries. I'll be back. Do you think the kid's not going to watch TV while you're gone?
Of course he is.
What do you think the dog's going to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a number of answers for this problem that you have. Okay. I've been doing this for 10 years. It's all super common. It all comes down to what you're willing to do, what's realistically, what are realistic expectations. And I tell this to everybody, I don't leave dogs outside unattended because that's when things happen. I had another client, their dog got out the yard and went and bit someone down the alley.
So no matter how well behaved your dog is, you do not let them out unattended?
No, because the other thing is people steal dogs. I've had that happen too.
But, yeah.
All right.
And you have power breeds, you have pits, you have fighting breed dogs,
Okay.
right? So there's a lot of, how do you say, kind of harsh realities. I treat dogs like 3 to 4 year old children because that's their learning capacity, right? I would not leave my 3 to 4 year old child unattended in the yard,
Okay.
right? I would not let anybody I don't know just come up and approach my 3 to 4 year old child. Same thing as with my dog, right?
Yeah.
There's this unrealistic expectation of my dog has to love everyone and everything that it comes in contact with. I don't like everybody that I come in contact with, right? It's not realistic, but people have that expectation, right? But they don't look at themselves and think like, wait a minute, not even I'm like that, right? Because yes, a lot of dogs are happy-go-lucky, they're friendly, they're capable of being that personality type. But even those dogs at one point can potentially bite someone or another dog if they're fed up, having a bad day, having their personal space being intruded on at a time that they don't want it to be intruded on, right? There's a lot of variables. So again, it's personal preference. If you want to have your dog outside unattended, I would say, okay, well, I'd have the dog collared up though, so that this way, if they bark, I can just press a button and tell them, you know, I don't have to walk out there and tell them to shut up. I can just press a button.
Okay.
Okay. But then my thing is people steal dogs. So.
Okay.
Other questions?
You have any more questions?
No, that's pretty much it.
We're good.
You did say the collars are waterproof though, correct? So if
Correct.
like
Yes.
further down the line he's okay with going to like
The
the dog beach or somewhere like that, he goes in the water.
Yeah. You just have to make sure that it's sealed correctly, which I'll talk to you about it. And I would send you videos that go over me. I'm like talking about the collar, the functions,
Okay.
and explaining that stuff. It's pretty straightforward. So in addition to the training, I'm going to send you video links to watch to kind of supplement stuff that I wouldn't be able to show you. Okay. Everything we're doing now is verbal instruction. So I'm coaching you through all the training. Okay. If you go to my YouTube channel, I have like, I think 6 or 7 clients now, and all their videos are being posted up because they're being recorded. And you can see just how effective it is, even without me handling the dog. I do recommend that anybody who's going to want to be a part of the training be there. Okay. So I don't care if it's like 2 people or 5 people, but I'll most likely focus on 1 or 2 people and give a quick run through for the others, so that because if I try to teach 5 people in 1 hour, you're not going to get much of anything. Okay. So I usually focus on 1 or 2 people, and then try to squeeze in the others, and then you coach them through the week, or you can actually go to the videos and use them as reference. Okay. We've been working over at Oz Park here. There's plenty of space. There's lots of distractions. There's off-leash dogs. Okay. So we'll probably find an area where it's a little bit more quieter.
How's the parking over there?
Horrible. I was just there the other day getting Italian ice.
We've always found parking. There's street parking.
Yeah.
Is it street parking, or you got to pay to street park?
You can find places that you don't have to street park.
Yeah, there's around the park. There's free parking, but then if anything, there is pay for parking. We've always found free parking, and it's me and 2 other people, so 3 vehicles plus my client, and there hasn't been any issues. But you know, I'm sure at one point it may happen. So.
Can you go over briefly again the benefits of possibly bringing Diesel for the first class or 2?
It just keeps the dogs on the same page. Because if you're treating one dog differently over the other, and Diesel's getting more freedoms, Mack will keep wanting to test, right? So if Mack is taught to walk very closely to you in a very strict manner, but Diesel's a little wonky and kind of like roaming a bit, Mack's gonna want to roam. Okay, so if one person walks Diesel and one person walks Mack, then no big deal. It's really a problem if one person's walking both dogs. Okay, so if that's not going to happen, then it's like whatever. But otherwise, like, I don't care. At the end of the day, it's your house, your rules.
Well, I definitely think that we should do that, because I can't walk them both by myself anymore. Someone has to come with me.
Yeah.
Because of how crazy Mack is. But I do notice what you said with the whole pulling. When I pull him back and tell him to heel, he pulls me more the minute I let him go.
Right.
So I definitely see that.
If you do both dogs, typically in the beginning, I recommend that you're working with them separately, because you have to learn everything before you pair them together. And then for additional control, I don't know if you guys have them, but have you ever heard of a Prom Collar, the spiky looking?
Yeah, we have one.
You can bring that so I can take a look at it, but you can also get that for additional control, because it's very different walking one dog than it is walking 2 or more dogs, right? And if you have power breeds, let's say something happens, like a squirrel runs, right? And one of them lunges and then the other one follows, the prong collar is there to help you get that control back because you're not going to be thinking fast enough to work with the remote, that the prong is there as a kind of secondary measure. But and I'll tell you, you know, if you decide to do that, we'll see how things work out, and then I'll tell you, okay, now it's time for the Prom Collars, and this is what I suggest. Or if the one that you have is good, then I'll tell you, you know, just get another one or whatever.
So you're a fan of Prom Collars?
Yeah, they're meant to mimic a dog bite, right? Dogs bite each other.
Yeah.
You know, I stopped using them because they take a lot of technical skill.
Oh, if pulled too hard though, I'm just afraid it would really hurt the dog.
Well, look, you used to use it on Riley, and she used to pull like.
I only used it briefly because her size scared
We
me.
used to have a Bernese Mountain Dog.
Sure. So if you get a cheaper prong collar, the way they're cut on the prongs, it's flat that leave sharp edges. The ones that I use are rounded.
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 Look at ours.
Oh, I think ours do have a flat, maybe.
Yeah. So the flat edge is more likely to scratch or tear skin. So that's why I always tell people get they're not that much more expensive. They're like anywhere from $16 to $35 a collar.
Yeah.
And they last a really long time as well. But we'll see how things go before we incorporate those, if needed. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm done with my questions. Okay. So where do we go from here?
So I'll talk to Maria, and then she'll get in touch with you. And then the models for those two collars that I told you, the $287 one is called Dogtra, Dogtra, 2300. And the other one is Dogtra 3500.
Okay.
If you decide to get a 2-dog system, let me know, or let us know, so that we can send you the model. Okay.
With the 2-dog system, is it one remote and?
Yeah, one remote, 2 dogs.
But if you shock one dog, does the other one get?
No.
Okay.
So they each got their own button.
Okay.
So all of them just come with one remote?
Correct. Now you can order a second remote from the company. So like, let's say, because I've had clients where they'll take the dog separately. So if one person has a remote, then the other person is stuck with nothing. Is they just get another remote paired to it, and they can each have their own dog. Yeah. So you can even get, 5 remotes. They're all paired to the same thing, but typically most people are fine with just the one remote, two dog system.
I'm the only one who does anything with them anyways, so.
And you can always order the other one down the line. So.
That two dog system, you said that's like $800?
No, it's $500 to $600, and that's me giving it a higher estimate. Okay, I think it's the Dogtra 3502 is the higher powered 2-dog system. If you want to look up the price. Because they changed a couple of things with their models recently, so not many people train 2 dogs at once.
So it's 2 collars, 1 remote.
Correct.
Okay. All right. All right, we'll look that up. And then you said Maria will contact us for dates?
Yeah. She'll contact you and then send you, kind of reiterate the pricing and everything.
Okay.
And then once you give the thumbs up, she'll send you a training form, and then you'll sign it or whatever. It has our payment policy, training stuff, all that, the legal stuff. And then once that's submitted and you have your time, she'll send you a invoice. And then once it's paid, you'll be confirmed. She'll send you an invite via Google, and then you're all set to go.
Okay, so the invite via Google is
For Zoom.
that's going to be the in-person. You're going to start off with the in-person
Correct.
park. Okay.
Yeah.
You do all your you're scheduling through invites on the computer?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that you'll get in, then you just hit yes to accept it so that we get the confirmation.
Okay.
And then if you have to decline, like also like with the whole virus thing, if you don't feel well, you know, feel free to just say, hey, sorry, woke up, have a fever, have to cancel. We've kind of foregone our cancellation policy due to that whole thing. So just so that you're aware of that. Yeah.
What is your, not that we would ever cancel, but maybe reschedule? Right now during this whole lockdown thing, we're very available, but once it's cleared, she goes back to school.
And I'm a nurse.
We go back to work. So the scheduling might change. So is there any penalty for changing a date?
No, you just let us know.
Okay.
How far in advance would you guys like need to know? Like
As soon as you know.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I understand life's going to happen.
We're fine. You know, canceling's a different story.
Right. But if you're canceling because of, you know, you're not feeling well because of everything going on, it's like, don't worry about it. You know, thanks for letting us know. We'll pause things. And then rescheduling, like, you know, it happens. And we may act like we try to keep our eyes on the weather. So like the past 2 weekends, because most of my clients are Saturday, Sunday, it rained Sunday.
Yeah.
So very last minute, we contacted people, I think it was Thursday night, like at 8 p.m. Like, hey, it's going to rain Sunday. Can you do Friday or can you do Saturday? And we just filled what we could in so that we didn't have to keep pushing back due to the weather.
Okay.
Okay. So if you see that the weather looks spotty, like feel free to let us know so that we can be ahead of the ball a bit. And then we'll start rescheduling people if needed.
And do you want us to have this e-collar in our hands before our first? Okay,
Yes.
so we'll get that ordered right away.
Yeah. When you get it, test it out. I'm going to send you some video links. Once you're confirmed, I'll follow up with an email and I'll say, watch these videos, test your collars, because sometimes, because it is electric, they might send a lemon. Okay. It's very rare, but this way, if you get a lemon and it doesn't, because you should be able to go up at like 1, 2, 3, 4, very incremental. And some will jump like 1 to 30. Okay.
Our stereo.
Yeah. So you want to return that, exchange that, so that, you know, because I've tried to work with one and it's a pain in the butt. Okay. And then you just end up wasting a class. So then I just say, you know, postpone, send it back, and then we'll get you back on the schedule when you're ready.
All right.
Oh my God, I did have one question.
Where did you meet Garrido?
I worked with one of their dogs.
One of his personal dogs?
No, his rescue dogs.
That's owned by someone else.
So, all right. Are you guys familiar with Pet One Chicago?
Yes.
Okay, so the lady Eva,
Yes.
she knows John.
Okay.
And then I guess she handed him my brochure, like just to like say like, hey, I know this really good trainer. And then he ended up calling me up and said, hey, you know, I have a rescue dog who has resource guarding issues and stuff like that, you know, and I'm looking for someone who can help him out. And I was like, yeah, I was like, sure, send him on over. So we had that dog for, I think, like 2 months. And then we trained him, we fully off leash trained him. And then the dog got adopted.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So then now the dog, Mason's been gone he left just before the COVID thing happened.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that's how I know John.
Okay. So when you say you had him for 2 months, you kind of did the boot camp thing with him?
Yeah, I did the boot camp, but then, you know, because their rescue, they needed to find a home for him. I was like, he's a good dog. Like, he was great for socializing. We use him all the time we put him to work essentially, like to work for his training. And I told John, like, he's not much work. We've already trained him. So we just kind of took care of him until they found him a home. Was
Okay.
what we did. So.
You said you had a question?
Yeah, I don't remember though. Oh, sorry. No, it's fine. It's
You sure?
Oh yeah. So until like we do start this, or when we do start this, how should we go about correcting this one in the yard with barking?
Just go out there.
I would just do the treats things that you've been doing. I wouldn't, and just tell your neighbors, hey, you know, we were hiring a trainer and we're going to get this resolved as soon as possible. So at least they know that you're doing something about it and you're seeking professional help, and that you're not just like kind of blowing them off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I always suggest to people, is always just be upfront. Just say like, hey, we're addressing this now. Just give some patience while we work through it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for all that information and your
You're
time.
welcome. And there's plenty more information on my channel, so feel free to start educating yourselves. The more you know, the more you'll get out of the classes. Okay.
Your YouTube channel.
It's complete uncut training lessons.
Okay. What is that under again? Or
It's under my name, Jesus, Jesus, San Miguel, SANMIGUEL.
okay.
Got it.
Or Canine Perspective, which is my company.
Okay. Did you actually meet the dog whisperer?
Oh, Susan Milan, yeah, I did.
I love that guy.
Jeez.
You know how he always goes, shh, shh.
Yeah.
I do that all the time in the house. It drives my kids nuts. That's how I got Diesel to sit. I'd be like, shh, and my foot would go to the butt and he would sit.
Sure. No, it's effective. I mean, I love Caesar, and I can do his methods and stuff, but they take a lot of skill to do effectively. So, yeah, I met Caesar Milan.
Cool. All right.
All right.
Okay, well, send us what we need, and we'll reply right away, and then we'll go about getting this dog collar.
How are you gonna relay the information to Maria that the first 2 sessions will be with Diesel?
Yeah, I think we're gonna add Diesel for the
Sure.
first 2.
When she gets in, I'll tell her to give her heads up, but she'll confirm everything with you.
Okay.
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 Alrighty. If you need anything else, you let us know.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great
Thank
weekend.
you. Bye.
Bye.